Did you have a question?
I kind of did, I just kind of got
Zoned out.
right, zoned out there. But I think there's a little misunderstanding about undocumented people because, to be honest with you, I know physicians who were in a status of, quote, being undocumented because they just hadn't gotten around to applying for their citizenship. I think there's a broad misconception about what that means, undocumented. It could be waiting for something. My brother-in-law lived in this country, PhD chemist for years, before he finally decided, oh, well, he's married to my sister, who's a citizen, we grew up here. He decided, oh, I'm gonna get my citizenship. So he could have been called undocumented. So I think there needs to be some clarity here. It's like people's perception turns into reality when it's not necessarily reality.
Right.
So I wanna clarify for some people that, you know, I agree, immigration's a federal issue. It was resolved by a committee a couple of years ago, and then it was voted down in Congress. I don't know what we can do about that. But actually, what I wanted to bring up is I have I don't know if there's something you can do at the state level because it is kind of a federal thing now, but it does affect all states, and that is these people masquerading as law enforcement and kidnapping people off the streets. And I view it as a women's issue because women are being affected because there's people posing like this person that assassinated Representative Portman, her husband. They buy stuff off of Amazon and pose as law enforcement. Now, not only is this unfair to the general citizens, it's also unfair to law enforcement. It's very unfair to them. And I don't know if we can do something at the state level to say, hey, you know, you have to have a badge, you have to identify yourself, you have to have a warrant. I don't know if the state can do something like that, but I'm very disturbed by that. It's just very unsafe for our population. And, you know, parties talk about law and order and stuff. Well, we're turning into kind of a lawless society in my opinion.
Yeah, but those things have
No,
been
I'm
going
not
on for
talking-
years.
excuse
They
me,
have
I'm
been
not
going on
addressing
for
it.
years.
I don't know if there's something we can do, but I think it's turning into a big problem.
I totally agree with you on that. And there is word that once we get back in session again, we'll address a state law because we create our own state laws here. So we can address that. The law right now, I believe, is just a misdemeanor. Unfortunately, what's happened is laws need to catch up with society.
Right.
And what's happened is with the advent of the internet and all that stuff, you can go and you can make yourself look like a police officer easier than you've ever wanted to. You know, if we go back to that situation, it's again a little bit, in that situation a little bit, he had a police car or a car dressed up as a police car that was advertised by that company saying we look like police cars. So that's a little bit, as far as going back to outfits, I'm a reserve, and in the reserve in Washington County Sheriff's Office. And so that you go to these places and they say go here, get sized up and all that stuff. So those outlet places, those, I don't know what the official word is, but even going online, you can make yourself look like a police officer. I agree, we need to make that crime much stiffer. Now, remember, when we do a law, we also have to rely on your local county attorneys and all that stuff to decide it's something worth it. Right now, if you want to go to Hennepin County, they don't enforce as much as hard as Washington County. I can tell you, Washington County has a attorney's office, a sheriff's office that other counties admire and is known throughout the country. You know, we're going to help you. If you look at I worked with the county attorney. They're going to give you options. They're going to say you may be messed up in the lower level. We're going to stop this trail, but if you show you're not willing to do it, then it's time. We're going all the way back to former Pete Morpeth, who was a wonderful person that I really miss, and that's been carried over by Kevin. We are understanding, or they are understanding, they're willing to help you, but if you get to that point you show you don't want help, they're going to enforce. People run from Washington County when they commit a crime, trying to make it back to Ramsey and Hennepin, because they know
It might be
they're not Well, I can tell you a lot of times they come out Walmart in Cottage Grove. It's a big hotbed for crime. They steal a car, they come out here to the Cottage Grove or other Walmarts, crime, and try to run back. That's where a lot of those chases are. And because they know if they can just get back to Ramsey County, they'll be out that night. Washington County, you're gonna do some time. That's just the way it is. You talk to any sheriffs, I talk to them all the time. And so we can create the laws, but the laws have to be enforced. And that touches on the other subject I had before. So to answer your question, and I'll get back to it, I wanna make sure everybody else has had an opportunity to talk. Yes, I do support stiffer laws because nobody should be putting on a uniform that impersonates any position of authority when they have not earned that authority. That's whether it's the patrol, if that's the police officer, it's the sheriff, or even if you want to go in and start impersonating a soldier and try to use that as influence. That demeans the people who have earned it, removes the trust of society, and creates more problems. So we need to address that as a top level issue right now, just because we have to. It's just.
One more story. I know you have a wife and family, and I know women have known if you're driving at night and you see a car behind you and you're driving, you haven't really done anything wrong, you're not supposed to stop. You're supposed to go to the nearest crowded. Now, I've been followed by somebody who was nutty, and I didn't go home, and it's frightening. And now it's like, you're always told that if you're followed and there's a light blinking and you're driving, you haven't done anything wrong, don't stop, go to the nearest public place and pull over. And so now it's like, what if there's 3 people in that car and you go to a rural gas station and there's one person working in there, you're not exactly feeling safe. So I'm just saying, it's just gotten so out of proportion, and I'm just asking, I'm glad to hear that people are discussing that something needs to be done, because it's just out of control.
I agree. We had a question back here.
Yeah, well, I suggest call 911 first. I'd be real interested in your thoughts on how the state is going to address their upcoming deficit. We went through kind of a spending spree where we spent our surplus and $12 billion, whatever it was, $16 billion, and now it's going to end up in a deficit because of all the spending bills that have gone in and haven't been taken away. So I'm kind of interested in how you think it will be addressed in these couple of sessions.
So for this session, thank you for the question. Everybody heard that?
Yeah.
You didn't hear that?
No.
Okay. That was basically just wondering how we're going to deal with the upcoming deficit in not this biennium, but the next one. We were going into a forecast $6 billion deficit. This budget took $5 billion. We cut $5 billion out of this budget to address that future deficit. So if you follow the governor, there actually been plans to what they're going to do if we had 26, 27 in place, and then we had 27, 28. And what happens in 27, 28, which is another election period out, I can tell you what I would like to see if I was reelected. I would like to continue to see where some of the cuts can happen from, because we can't keep raising taxes after we had 10 billion in taxes. And I'll ignore the surplus right now, but 10 billion in taxes that were raised. That is actually affecting people in many, many different levels. I do not believe, and I'm going to tell you just basically because it's out there, it's on camera, it's been interviewed, the answer for the other side, if there is a deficit, is automatically raise more taxes. That's not the way I think the answer is. That is not the way I look at it. Is we need to find out where the money was spent, is that money spent wisely, and then we can start doing it. That's where a lot of this year has been spent on fraud, where we're spending money and stuff like that. Because if it's going out on fraud purposes and it should be spent, one of the things that I feel that we changed this year with some good bipartisan support was removing named grants. That means if you just come up there and create a relationship with a legislature, all of a sudden you get named as a grant. In other words, if you want to see how many there are, look in the jobs bill. But so many of them, we have changed now to saying they're competitive. In other words, we have this money for this purpose. You come in with your group, show us your number, show us what you're going to do, your 990, all that stuff. To take away, because the fraud is happening when people are just being handed money and just a grant to that, you know. And so we need to make things more competitive, just like everything else. Everybody's coming in and competing for that. That's a change we made. What we have to, one of the things is, you go back to some of the money that is spent and some of the illogic points down there that I think we could look at. Example is what happened in 23-24 was the universal lunches. There was a plan that came up in Representative Myers that said, if you make over $150,000, you take that away. You no longer should have free lunches. Breakfast, yes, but it's not lunches. And that would have saved $112 million for the schools. That if you go, I was just at the Stillwater School Board, they are struggling because now they're looking at some major cuts of teachers and staff. And that's at every school district. We dealt with that. We tried to bring that up. It's like, we have to come up with something. We have to come up with something. In one department, or one committee, I'll be told, we can't reduce property taxes or have any kind of a plan that might reduce property taxes or tax cuts if it's going to benefit somebody that makes over $150,000. We're not even going to give anybody else a tax break if there is a fear, because there's a fear of that. Here's the logic with that. Then how do you turn around and say we're going to give free lunches to people who make over $150,000?
How about if we don't give free lunches or free breakfast at all?
That's a decision that was made before. I just know growing up, we had free lunches back when I was growing up. I never knew who did it, who didn't get it. I never saw a kid turned away or anything like that. I think it went overboard originally. It was a rush. I think when you have a lot of money, you make decisions that you're regretting. I think we're gonna have to deal with it because you talked about the deficit. You want to talk about deficit? The schools are going to be devastated coming up. Because if you want to also talk about the issue too is unemployment insurance for contract workers at the schools. That was fixed this year by taking $75 million away from this train and to fund it. The reason this is an issue is they're not eligible for unemployment because they're not laid off. They're not terminated. They signed a 9-month contract. They knew they signed a 9-month contract coming into it. This has been going on for years. And now, because they can't apply for normal unemployment, they have to go to the schools. The schools are going to have to fund that. We bailed them out this time, but that's going to go back on schools. So that's another $75 million that they're going to have to deal with and try and figure out. So these are the kind of things that we have to look at and come up with plans, because the other thing too is I made a point in a lot of the bills that I went and, sorry if I'm going off track, but the bills that I stood up, I was at the county and I still work with the county. I made a pledge to those at the county that when I get down there, I'm going to start identifying and bringing up and fighting against the constant desire to put millions and hundreds of millions of dollars back onto the county to try and figure out how to pay for it. And that's mandated. That's mandates, unfunded mandates. That's what they're doing to the schools. That's what they're doing to them. What does that mean? Yeah, your income tax isn't going up, but it's going to your property taxes. If you see how the money is brought down to the capital now, less and less of it is coming from income taxes. It's coming from sales taxes, and it's coming from money coming from other places. You know, every $1 million that comes down to the county is a percent on the levy, at least that's the way it used to be. They tried to push over $200 million down to the county this last year. I stood up and I fought it. Everybody knew that I was fighting it. Then at the last second, and this is what I didn't like too, is they went behind closed doors and said, we're going to try and hash out the budget now. And they came up with another 90-something million dollars that was promised to the counties and the collar counties for transportation and other things in the 2023 bill when they raised the sales tax on the collar communities. They went and said, you know what, we decided you don't need this anymore, we're gonna give it to the Met Council. Met Council didn't need it. It's just a couple representatives and senators said we're gonna do this, no idea why, because it really messed over their county. The last minute, we're ready to go in and vote on it that Monday. Spent the weekend, and actually a few days before, counties are going down scrambling, I was standing out, we're public, press releases, everything. What are you doing? That's another $95 million back to the county, collar communities. That would have raised, I think, another $6 million. So you're looking at, between the 200 million and the 95 million, you're looking at almost double-digit levy before they even started with the issues that are going on here. So that's what I'm down there fighting. And that's why if I know what's happening and I know it's gonna raise taxes, to me, taxes are taxes. Whether you decide if it's a property tax or you decide it's income tax, whatever. Fees are a tax. The health bill. I didn't vote for the health bill. You know why I didn't vote for the health bill? Because it had $1 billion worth of fees that were taxed onto health care. You know where that money's going down to? You, as insurance, as people that are searching for that. Health insurance companies aren't paying for it. It's gonna go automatically down to you. And I didn't agree with that, so I didn't vote for the health bill.
I think it's time to move
So-
out of the state.
so-
That's what I think, you know what? To
But-
have my house go up,
Well,
to be
Someone else
appraised, the
can.
appraisal of it to go up $500,000 twice. I'm like, how can you do that? Because we can. What kind of an answer is that? Because we can?
Ma'am, would you please
That's-
give someone else a
that's
chance
just
to
to be
talk?
respectful, that's a county issue. We don't control the values at the state, so there's
There's too much.
you have your commissioner here, totally, I've been through this for 4 years with the county, so I don't understand that.